my faith grew because of mixed martial arts. My love for mixed martial arts grew because of my faith, especially as a fighter or as a competitor. Knowing yourself, pick up your cross. What did Jesus say? He said, "For whoever loses his life here will gain his life in eternity." And it's a journey. It's a journey, and it's just completely, it's fully trusting in Him.
This video has been brought to you by Catholic Fightwear. Catholic Fightwear is a rash guard company that makes Catholic-themed martial arts rash guards. From Blessed Takayama, St. Joan of Arc, to St. Michael the Archangel. They have all sorts of stuff. I personally wear it myself. If you guys are interested in getting any of their apparel, click the links down below. Let's go ahead and go back to the video. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Catholic Martial Artists. I'm here with Ciaran Clark. He is a pro MMA Bellator fighter with 9-0 record. And the reason why I reached out to Ciaran is because one day I was watching some fights. I believe it was Bellator 291. I'll put a link in the description. And after his fight, after a dominating wrestling match, he pulled out a rosary. And I thought, like, this is interesting. This guy must be Catholic. And then I started watching his other fights. I noticed he was wearing a Benedictine cross. And I thought he'd be a perfect person to come on here. So thank you, Ciaran, for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So my first question is, what is your background in the faith, and how did you get into martial arts?
So to answer, I suppose, two questions in one. But so my faith, unfortunately, it's not I think some people kind of expect it's going to be I kind of found my faith along the way. Obviously, of course, your faith grows, and it's a journey. But for me, it started very young, as long back as I can remember. I was raised Catholic. Here in Ireland, everybody would go to Catholic school. Like, I think over in the States and stuff, it'd be like Catholic school. Whereas when we go to school, it's like school is Catholic. It's we're all Catholics. We're all baptized when we're young. It's a part of our culture. Like, be very, very rarely you'd hear someone getting baptized when they're an adult, or we're all christened and baptized when we're young, and we're all Catholics. We're all Catholics. So and school was all the schools were Catholic. Now it's different. It's now it's a lot different. But yeah, like, talking maybe when I was going to school, and that was it. Like, obviously things are changing now, but we all went to school as Catholics. But as far as been reared as one, not everybody is, and I don't mean to say as in, like, but obviously, we were practicing Catholics growing up, and it was very important for us to go to mass every Sunday. And my grandmother and my mother, myself and my siblings were reared by them. And yeah, we'd very strong. When I think back, it was a part of my life. But it's only when it's only you think back to it, it's like, oh, that's why now I would have such strong faith. And it's because of them, and I have a lot to thank for, that I was able to, as an adult now, to keep the faith, I suppose. And yeah, because I think a lot of times people kind of expect to hear some kind of story, but I was rare. And yeah, it was always a part of my life, and it was always, you know, um, every night saying our prayers, and as a family, like, we prayed as a family, and that was a big thing, like, and yeah, just mass every Sunday, and yeah, just good faith. And not necessarily, like, I think people, a lot of people, when things go bad, it's like, it's an Irish thing, like, you go into the church and you light a candle if someone's sick, or
Yeah.
which is great, of course. And that's another thing people need to realize now, is, like, that could be your, that could be the spark that reignites the fire, I suppose. Or but, like, yeah, like, we just it was just a part of our daily lives. It was a part of our life. And so that's how, I suppose, it never really happened. It just was always a part of me, which I'm very thankful for, as I said. But and then martial arts, how I got into martial arts. I grew up a single parent household. Was bred from my grandmother and my mother. And growing up, it was myself and my brother. I was the eldest of my siblings. I was myself and my brother. And then I had two younger sisters. But they're a good few years younger. So when we were growing up, myself and my brother, 2 years apart, we were like, thick as thieves. We were very close. And as brothers as everybody has, there's always you're always, there's
Always
always
fighting.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So we always had that kind of interest and in I don't know, just that kind of competitiveness in us, and nothing like about violence around, but just that kind of like yeah, we really enjoyed watching the WWE growing up and thinking it
Mm.
was real, and just love that kind of side of it. And then uh, as we got a bit older, then we started to take an interest in a bit of boxing. Started a bit at there, and then when we got I was in secondary school at the time, so I was 15. So I'm not sure how that worked over you guys are, but
Mhm.
um, so I was 15, and friends were doing it at the time, and they were like, "Oh, you should try it and stuff." And like that, I was always interested in martial arts. I tried it out, and I loved it. Never thought I'd be a professional fighter. Just I just it wasn't the thing. Even my coach at the time was a pro fighter, but like he was doing it for the he was. I'm very very lucky now at the minute, and it's a small minority that makes a living out of it, and even to this day. But back then, like he was just doing it because he loved it, and of course I'm doing it because I love it. But like I never thought it'd be a career path, or I never knew what I wanted to do, and that's kind of how I got started then, and both of them actually kind of go hand in hand with each other. My fight grew um because of mixed martial arts, and my love for mixed martial arts grew because of my faith.
Mhm.
Because of, and some people might be like, oh, how does that coincide? And well, actually, the two of them are simultaneously. You know, for me, the both philosophies of them, and even being a Catholic is, and we'll get into, you talked about saints and stuff, but someone of the big influence in my life, my faith, sorry, would be Fulton Sheen, and he said,
Mm.
you know, there's two philosophies in life. There's the fast, and then the feast, or there's the feast and the hangover. And I think that,
Mm.
especially as a fighter or as a competitor, now especially, like you have all these sacrifices and all of these doing the things that basically denying yourself, and at the end of it you have, it's the resurrection, it's the greater good, it's the reward. And that's what is being a Catholic. It's denying yourself, pick up your cross. What did Jesus say? He said, for whoever loses his life here will gain his life in eternity. And that's it, and then being a competitor or a fighter, it's like saying no to being disciplined, to train when you don't want to, or to take the rest when you don't want to rest, or to, not eat that bad food because you have to make a weight. And so I think that for me, the both of them really, really helped me.
Yeah, man, that's why you I've been trying to explain that to people because I train martial arts as well, and I do see like a lot of the ascetical practices, preparing for fights, doing all that training, you can use that to become holier. Like you can use that. And I really like how you said, you were raised Catholic, like your parents just took you to mass. And I think a lot of people underestimate that if you just take your kids to mass, you pray every day with them, it's gonna stick. Like I think some parents like fear that like, oh, it's not gonna stick, I'm forcing them to do it and they're just not gonna be interested. But you know, the grace of God will still work, You can't just not do that entirely. Because at least in the States, there are some families that like, well, I don't want to force my kids to go to mass, or I don't want to force them to pray. And it's like when I was growing up, it's like, nope, we're doing the rosary tonight. We just have to do it. And it was a thing that we just grew up with. It was just like natural. And same thing you said about lighting candles, like we knew someone's sick. Um, we'd go into the church and light a candle, same thing. So I have my mother's Filipino and my dad is American. Probably tell from my last name. I have some Irish heritage. I mean, I look like it, but I have some of that too. But yeah, man, that's really awesome. And the next question I have for you, and you kind of almost kind of led into it, is how is specifically, like, I know you mentioned how the training and the um kind of helped your Catholic faith grow. What was there any like specific time where you realized that, or was it just kind of from the very beginning? All right, really quick, if you're enjoying this video and you like this content, be sure to give our video a thumbs up and also subscribe so you guys don't miss out on new videos. Also, comment down below your thoughts. Let me know what you think of the video so far. And let's go ahead and go back to the video.
Um, so from, as I said, growing up, I would have, everything obviously, as we know, is taught down to us by our, because we're kids, So like you said, it was like you're praying the rosary, you have to, and not being forced or things like that. But like you talk to people, not forcing people, but a lot of the time it's like, well, if you're told not to cross that road, sometimes you're physically you have to stop someone not crossing the road, and because it's good, not it's bad for them, And I think that's not forcing them. It's disciplining them, and I think people are a lot afraid now of that, And like you said, it'll stick, and I think morality, it comes from God, of course, but I think if going to mass and you have these things growing up and it's instilled in you, you will always have that in life. You'll always that, as some people will call your conscience, which is it's God's voice. That'll always be there. And they'll know that, and I think it'll always be in the back of their mind. They'll know. So I think that as well was a big thing for, like, and I wasn't even like, we had to, like, it was like, and of course, like, it was just like you were going, like you said, you're just doing it, So it really, really helped. And as far as growing my faith, martial arts as well, like, it was like, you're doing this, you're doing this, you know, I, you're doing this such fight or flight. I suppose, give an example, like, I've fought in, so many arenas now at this stage, and solo arenas, and television, and all of these things, and you're fighting certain opponents, and all of these external things that would, it can be overwhelming, of course. But for me, it was like, it was my journey along the way, and I'm still along the way, still on it, of course. But for me, it was just completely surrendering myself to the will of God. And I don't have, and again, I'm still learning, but I don't have this such anxiety of winning or losing anymore. All I think a lot of people think, like, oh, like, I pray for the win, or no, I don't. I don't pray to win. I pray for the courage, the strength to get me safe to the fight, without, for me and my opponent to come out of there safe. And of course, I'm completely aware. Again, a contradictory thing to say, but again, at the end of the day, it's a sport, and I know what this sport has done for me. And I don't pray to win. I pray, in victory to be humble, and in defeat to be gracious. And that's it for me. It's sport, and like I said, to where I am today, it kept me in it, my faith. Because then I was like, because when I was growing up, I'd be always like, it was by the grace of God, the paths I didn't take in life and that I could have took, I know now. It was like, because I would always have these conversations with my brother, who also have great faith, and these conversations we'd have. Why did we not? Not why, as in like, why didn't we? It was like, wow, like, like, it wasn't like a pat on the back of ourselves, but it was kind of like, wow, like, look what God had in store for us. And me doing this sport kept me in that right road and grew my relationship with him. And it's all of the wins I've had, or the losses, even at amateur and stuff. And some people hear me, and you gave the introduction there. I'm 9-0 and no losses, but I've lost many times at amateur, and it's like, all of these things have just, I've grown my faith in God, in Jesus, and that's it. It's just surrendering myself to Him, and it's, as we all know, it's a journey. It's a journey, and it's just completely, it's fully trusting in Him, and that's the hardest thing. That's the hardest thing, as it's hard.
Yeah, no, man, I agree with you too. Like, it's the more, like, I think the stronger people are in their faith, the more realize God has blessed them with so many things. And I think when people focus on what they lack so much, then it just makes them feel miserable, right? Which is why, not many people know this, and I'm glad you brought this up. Some people look at MMA fighters' record and be like, "Oh, they've only had 9 fights." Like, no, 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 they've had a lot more before that. Like, you don't see the amateur fights. You only see like when they're pros, but there's a lot of training that goes into it, and not even many people make it through going through that many amateur fights. Like I had a friend of mine, he had like 50 amateur fights, and then he was 2-0, right, in MMA, and people were like, "Oh, he's only had 2 fights." Like, no, this guy's had 50. Like, there's no, people don't realize that, but yeah, man, no, that's really insightful because like kind of going back to what you said about letting go and letting not caring about winning or losing. um Jesus, when he was on earth, he was kind of like that too. He was like, you either believe me or you don't. you know it wasn't this whole like, let me try to convince you. It was like, okay, let me show you how much I love you. I'll die on the cross for you, but you have to accept my love. Yeah, I'm not going to force you to love me. um which is a big thing of Christianity. Is like, you gotta, like, God in his goodness gave us a free will to choose him or not, right? So we have this free will, and if we don't use that will, then that's on us. So yeah,
Of
man.
course, man. Of course, like you said, it's it's the only thing that we actually have we're in possess. We're in control of is our will. Or sorry, our free will.
Mhm.
And in a way, it's hard to understand that in a way, because it's like, you know for me, it's like knowing, you know it's hard because you're in control of that, but then as well, that you know certain choices make or break it, really. And Jesus already knows them choices you've already made. Does that make sense? So it's
Yeah, no,
it's
he
kind of
does.
like,
Yeah.
it. And another thing as well is like, just let God be God, and try not. I think a lot of people are trying to understand that, and I think it's like, no, like you said, Jesus came, he died on the cross for our sins, and he gave us the free will to choose or not, and we're in the possession of that.
Mhm.
And and it's a great thing. It's like, I remember, I don't know if I read or heard. I forget the priest. Oh, sorry, Maximum Colby.
Oh yeah.
He was in the concentration camps, and he said, we've seen two types of people in the same circumstances. And he was like, I've seen people in the exact same circumstances, and they were just, obviously, you know, I don't know if be a great man myself, but they were, in pain. They were suffering, and that's what they were choosing. And then on the other hand, then they had the other people that were just getting on with it, and then they were with the certain circumstances, they accepted it, and they were just getting on. And so there was the two choices, and that's for us as well. We have them two choices. You know, um, we can choose the right road or the wrong road. So, but yeah, like you said, man, it's yeah, it would blow your mind if you think about it too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And it's hard to like convince, like, I'm the reason why I made this channel is to try to help martial artists kind of see Catholicism as a way, because I know a lot of guys who do fight, and they're kind of almost turning their career into like a god itself, where it's like, this is it, like, this is all I have, this is all and I try to talk to them and just say, like, like, there's something else. There's Christianity, there's specifically Catholicism, because as you know, there are so many saints that are warriors, like like Saint Sebastian, Blessed Takayama, who's a samurai. Do you know who Blessed Takayama is?
No, man, no, no.
Yeah, so Blessed Takayama, I actually devoted this channel to him. He's a samurai who's going to be a saint. He has one miracle so far, and he was a daimos, which means he attacked and defended castles. So he was like a very high skilled general in Japan, and he left Japan, went to exile because he was unwilling to give up his faith. Um, it's pretty remarkable story, but yeah, like, we have so many warrior saints. Um, And I try to help them with that. And I'm not sure if like, have you ever run into guys who are like, 'cause sometimes I do this, and I'll be training like jiu-jitsu, and then I have a brown scapular. So sometimes it just comes out, and then some guys are like, "What's that? What's that?" And then I talk to them a little bit about it, just to kind of plant the seed. Have you ever been in situations like that where you kind of like some guys ask you about your faith because you're pretty open about it, which is what I really like about and how you always wear that crucifix. Have you ever been in situations where you've had the opportunity to do that?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I suppose like I would always have my my miraculous medal on, or obviously I've worn the Benedictine cross, or I have my rosary. And it's funny because like I'd be walking around the hotel or the fight week, or whatever the case may be, and people see the cross, and I always enjoy looking at their faces, and it really, regardless of your religion or anything, I think people have an admiration for it, in the sense that, first of all, they know what it is, and second of all, because everybody gravitates towards it because they know,
Mhm.
and second of all, I see, an admiration. Uh, People have an admiration for, maybe it's not me, that's God working through me, but they see it as like, oh, like that's who you are, and you're not afraid to show it, or so that's a big part of it for me. But I maybe part of the reasons why I got into the sport, as we know, it's very egotistical, massively, especially in mixed martial arts, and it's the business side of it. But I'm very aware of that. I wouldn't be where I am without God, and that's just a fact, like, and it's like, it's very hard for me to be like, I'm proud of what I've done, because it's like, I just feel it's God working through me, and I'm just giving thanks back, and just showing the love of God. And if you have faith, and again, like I said, not that I'm the most faithful servant, but as we all know, being a Catholic, it's trying your best, and that's the hardest part. But that's what I'm. It's nothing about, like, I just want to. It's just, for me, it's like the least thing I can do, and it's just like, I'm not afraid to. And to me, it's not even like, I have to show it, or it's just something that it's like, maybe someone has that tattoo that they're just so, they want to show it off. Or
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's just a part of me, and like yourself wearing your brown scapular, I'm sure it's very hard for you to take that off. And for me, it's like, yeah, like I feel bare without something, or it's like, I just feel like it's like you said, talking with warriors, it's like I have the armor on, it's just, that's my armor. Does that make sense? So,
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
um,
That's the
and
same
again, I don't
mindset.
feel like it's funny because that's like a big thing that people gravitate towards. That I'm not afraid to, but it's like, for me, that's nothing. You know what I mean? Like, and again, it's not like get a pat in the back, because again, like I said, I don't know what to take these days credit for, because it's like, that's God working through me. And I think
Mhm.
when you realize that, it's like, and as he said, you can do anything with it. With it, with faith, and that's the way I look at it, and it's him working through me. That's it.
Yeah, that's all. Well said, man. Well said. Next question I have for you is who's your favorite saint?
Yeah. So I seen that, and I was like, I don't have a particular favorite saint per se, but I I would have people who would influence me recently. Sorry, that have helped my faith grow, and the biggest probably influence over that would have been and of course, like, that could be small acts of things and stuff, but that would have been Fulton Sheen, and I think,
Mhm.
man, like, yeah, the more I learned about the man, and I think maybe because there's a lot of information out there about him, but and the way that he did study philosophy and stuff, I think maybe it is a requirement to become a priest. The bare minimum, I think, they have to study philosophy, but for him, I think, the way he, you know I'm reading his book at the minute, The Life of Christ, and just the
Mm.
way he's able to speak and articulate, it really hits home, you know.
Such a
And
good book.
I think yeah, I think he'd be the biggest one for me. And I think he's maybe in the process of becoming a saint. So I'm not 100% sure, but I know I'm not too far off in that sense. But so if you're asking about my saints, but you know, and then another person would have been I was praying the pray 40 for Lent through the Hallow app,
Mm,
and I
yeah.
learned about Father Chiswick. What was his name? Walter Chiswick, the Polish. Oh, sorry, the his mother and father were Polish descendants, and he was an American. And yeah, he went off to Russia, and it was his calling. And next day he's stuck in a gulag in a prison, and just everything's going bad for him. And just to read his story and to hear about it, this was a man that was so, competitive growing up and stubborn, and here he is now. He found his calling, and next letter is all taken away from him, and to see his faith and the circumstances he was in, and it's just to hear that. That's because I think society now sees, like, the David Gogginses of today, and don't get me wrong, he's a great man, but like that's the tough. But for me, it's like, you know your local priest is your tough man. you know that that
Yeah.
that's where I'm at now, and I realize that now. It's like it's the man that's able to deny himself, or to and again, come back to that discipline, or it's that they're the people that have influenced me. Like, I can take from them. You know what I mean? And that's where I'm striving. It's not to be, maybe, for social status, or because again, all of that we can't take with us. And I
Hmm.
really, for me, it's like those type of people really influence me. And it's again small little acts, to like yourself, dedicating this time to wanting to speak to me, or to spread the word, or to they're the people. Does that make sense? It's like,
No, it makes sense. Yeah.
small little acts, things like that. And of course, the Saints were great, and but like it's the people I can relate to, because that's another thing growing up was like, and still to this day, it has this like stigma to priests or to Catholics. People see us that if we're not perfect, well, then you're contradictory.
Hmm.
That's where people miss it. Is like, we're trying to be perfect. No one will never be perfect, but we're all called to be saints.
Yeah.
And that's what people get wrong. It's like, oh, well, if you don't live a perfect life, because we're all sinners, we're all born sinners, none of us are perfect. There's only, we know who was born perfect. And, and that's it, you know what I mean? I think people get that wrong. And I think, especially in Ireland, they have this, the culture has, because it's if you're not perfect, then why, but if you can't be, which none of us can, but it's like, why be that? Because you're contradictory. But that's not the point.
Yeah.
And these days people are so, don't want to be told they're wrong, because um I'm sorry, people are afraid to say you're wrong or what's right, because they're afraid to be judged, you know what I mean? And then, or they
Mhm.
feel they're not in a position to say that. But as we know, it's not about that. And again, we shouldn't be judging anyone, but like I say, going back to, it's just the small little acts of faith for me that's really hit home at me. And then obviously been able to learn about certain things that I might not quite understand. And of course, like I said, to mention Fulton Sheen, and yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. It's just like you said, we all could have our favorite, but it's very hard to choose, isn't it? It's
Oh yeah, no, it's so hard. And what you said earlier about priests being like, you know, tough men. I recently went to a Benedictine monastery, and just seeing a group of all these men devoting their life to God and like giving up everything else is like the toughest thing you can do. And that was like that these are real men. Because like the world will be like, oh, what are they doing? This looks like they're wasting time. That's like the secular kind of idea. But it's like, no, they're actually like they're probably praying for you right now. Like you probably aren't in the position you're in. You're probably only in the position you're in because there's somebody out there praying for you they have no idea about. Like, I know for me, I mean, when I was in my early 20s, I started to kind of drift away from my faith, and then suddenly one day it just came back. And I don't know if that was because I had I know Our Lady was praying for me for sure. Um, but I don't know if it was like a relative or someone I met a long time ago who's praying for me. Maybe it's some nun somewhere in a cloistered, I have no idea. But, people underestimate the power of prayer and how important it is, and how, asking, you know, God gives what you ask, right? As long as it's good for you. Like, if God is hearing you pray, like for example, Saint Augustine, like he didn't become Saint Augustine until his mother prayed day in and day out for his conversion. And now he's Saint Augustine, and everyone knows he's a doctor of the church. And like what you said earlier about, people criticizing like, oh, you guys aren't perfect. It's like, well, who did Jesus hang around with? He hang around sinners. And our church is a hospital. It's not a place for righteous people. Like, we're all broken. We're all going to make mistakes. And that's the beauty of Catholicism. It's like you don't have to be perfect yet. Like, God will he'll mold you like clay, as it says, like, and he'll transform you into someone, beautiful, but you have to first be willing to be molded. And that comes back to, I don't want anyone to tell me what to do. Like, you got to be willing to let God to like say, hey, as like a loving father would, don't do this, don't do that, send some boundaries, and then you'll be on the straight and narrow path, right? Like, what did Jesus say? Like, the path of destruction is wide and open, and everybody goes there. But if you want to find the path to life, you have to go down the narrow path, and God's going to set up, fences on either side of us, whether it's by his commandments or the teachings of the church, and just kind of help us go down that straight and narrow path. Um,
Yeah, and like you said there, just as you're talking, like it's like talking about a father, or even I actually, there's Benedictine monks here about a half an hour drive from me, and I was at the Latin Mass recently. Actually, the week of my fight, I attended a Latin Mass,
nice, cool.
and yeah, that was an experience, and it was very reverent, and it was an experience. And like you said, just seeing these men like that to me was like, wow. Like there I was, hungry and feeling sorry for myself because I was cutting weight, and
Mhm.
I was looking at these men and I was like, wow, like these are fasting all the time, or just these little things. Like, and I was just like, and then, you know, they're the people like that I'm like, striving to, and of course, when you really think about it, like they're just being Christ-like, and they might see the Christ-like in me, and we're all trying to be Christ-like, and that's the goal. And come back to trying to be perfect, and we're not. And then like you're talking about like a father saying no to a child or to be discipline, and that's the Ten Commandments. That's the first step to realizing the Ten Commandments are there, not because God's waving his finger, don't do this because I told you not to. They're there because if you follow these commandments, it's because that's the big thing now. Like, what's happiness? So that if you follow these commandments, God is putting these guidelines there for you, because if you follow these, you will be happy, and
Mhm.
it leads to salvation. If you don't, you will be unhappy. That's why they're there. It's not to be like because I told you not to.
Yeah.
It's like um, that's it. Like and that was a big thing for me, realizing it was like, oh, they're not there, like because, and that's a big thing these days. It's like we live in such a especially the last 100 years, of freedom and rights, and it's like do what you want, and that was the biggest, sell of the devil. It's like
Mhm. Yeah.
do what you want, do as you please, and that, and I think again, don't want to go off on a tangent, but man, I get you, I get you.
Yeah, no, I could talk about this for a long time because it's a true thing. Like, yeah, yeah, man. Well, I really appreciate you talking on here and giving us your time. What's next for you now? What's the next thing you're up to?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks very much. And yeah, my next fight is looking like September 14th in London. Um, I was possibly going to be on in June, but I didn't want that because the last fight camp and training took a lot out of me. So I wanted that just a bit of a break before it's then another 3 months before you're back fight camp, say. So the next one is September, London, Wembley Arena. And that's the next one. Not sure of an opponent or anything, but just for the minute, it's just enjoying training, getting better. And yeah, just, long may it last, please God. And like I said, it's just enjoying it.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for watching, everybody. If you guys like this video, be sure to give us a thumbs up, and also click the links down below if you guys are interested in following Ciaran on Instagram. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and God bless.